Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Women of Golf Show. I'm Ted Odorico, and joining me is LPGA professional Cindy Miller, and we are your hosts. We're broadcasting live every Tuesday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern here on the blogtalkradio.com network, bringing you some of the best golfers, teacher professionals, and entrepreneurs helping to elevate women's golf. We're so glad you decided to join us this morning, so grab your coffee and let's get started. All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Women of Golf Show. I'm Ted Odorico, and right alongside is LPGA professional and Legends Tour player Cindy Miller, and we are your hosts here on the Women of Golf. Good morning, Cindy.
Good morning, Ted. How are you today?
Kind of bored, actually. I want to get back to normal. I'm a little bit. We were talking about this off air, and as I know, everybody's a little frustrated and wanting to sort of get back to a sense of normalcy, if you will, with everything that's going on. And I know I'm sure on some levels, I'm sure you're feeling a little frustrated as well. How about you?
You know what? I'm doing okay. I've got so many things that I want to do that I would never have done
right.
had I been giving 60 or 100 lessons a week. So now we're hearing bad news or worse news or grim news, if you will, that it's going to take longer than we anticipated. I just hope that people will just sit and stay home, and so that this can't spread anymore. So that's what we have to hope for, that people will stop and listen.
Yeah, they've just to give a very, very quick update, some of the areas in the United States, some of the borders crossing into states now, they're ramping up a little bit of security, if you will, with the state police and obviously and other more local municipalities. They're trying to prevent, I know down here in the Florida area and along the Emerald Coast, one of the other, as I mentioned to you just a few moments ago, one of the hot spots is Louisiana, has been experiencing, especially out of New Orleans, experiencing a lot of concerns with this COVID-19. So they're trying to prevent them from basically leaving the state and coming into other areas and potentially spreading it. So, it's very nerve-wracking for a lot of people, and I know a lot of people are getting almost like claustrophobia, having to be stuck in the house or, in their little circle. But we just have to bear through it, and hopefully it'll clear up quicker than sooner. But it's definitely affected everybody, and even if you don't have it, it's made you change. And as you said, you're able to do some stuff. And I'm the same way. I'm able to do some things now that maybe I normally wouldn't have been able to do. So, but anyways, we want to welcome everybody to the show, and don't mean to start you off and depress everybody, but anyways, we got a great show for you this morning. We're going to be joined by in a little bit by Marvol Barnard. She is the national president of the LPGA Professionals, and she's also a member of the PGA of America. She'll be joining us on the second half. But the first half, Cindy, we're going to enter once again into the no BS zone, and we're going to talk about some of the challenges that women face and have faced in the golf industry. And I was reading a very interesting article, if you will, and it talked about there were actually 8 women in the article, and so I thought I would just mention, and some of the areas of discussion that we're going to cover is everything from launching a golf business to access for young girls in junior golf, a little bit about tournament play. One of the examples I'm going to give is talks about a woman's golf clothing line and obviously pay inequity or inequality, excuse me. So we're going to talk about some of those things. But what I'm going to do first, Cindy, is I'm going to read out one of the articles, segments of the article, and then get your comment. And the first one is actually about 2 women that we know very, very well, Pia Nielsen and Lynn Marriott, who are the golf performance gurus, if you will, and authors of 4 books. They're also founders of Vision 54 and ranked among Golf Digest 50 greatest teachers. And there's really 3 parts to this, sort of couples a few topics. And I'm just going to read this out very quickly, Cindy, then we'll have our discussion. But the first one, sort of hurdle, if you will, was when they were writing the book, Every Shot Must Have a Purpose. And Lynn talks about going to a booking agent in New York with some ideas and a draft, and was told that she should probably rewrite it as a book for women golfers. So needless to say, they were very, very disappointed in the message, and sort of walked out a little frustrated. But on a positive note, a few weeks later, she got a call, and the publisher had changed their mind. But this is an issue that doesn't maybe happen as much anymore, but certainly does. And then also, I want to add into this here, and then we'll sort of cross, as I said, a couple of points here. Nilsson also recalled the time that Lynn Marriott took the Player Aptitude Test, or the PAT for short, to become a member of the PGA of America. And that was an obstacle that she felt needed to be overcome. And one of the things that, of course, she had to play at the PGA National in Florida, but played from the same tees as the guys. So there was a little bit of disparity there. And so this was sort of another one. And the last one here, Nilsson herself faced another issue when she started coaching. She became head coach in Sweden for women's teams in 1990 and had the exact same job as her colleagues on the men's side, but was suggested that her pay should be lower. She was able to overcome that as well. So it really talks about a number of different things. Women in business, women obviously that want to play competitively or certainly teach competitively, that there's some disparity. So I want to get your thoughts on this. Let's talk about really, because this is something that you'd be familiar with for sure, and that is, having to, earn your status, if you will, to be able to teach the game. You had to obviously go through a PAT and so on and so forth when you were becoming an LPGA professional. How do you feel about that? Do you think that that's right in her case, having to play from the same tees, if you will, as the guys for that? Because obviously we know there's a lot of physical differences between men and women. What are your thoughts there? And then we'll talk about the pay inequality.
Well, that was 30 years ago, and
right.
They don't do that anymore, needless to say. Right. You can now play, they move the tees up for the PAT if you're a PGA member trying to become, a PGA of America member and you're a woman, you get to play from shorter tees. So I don't think that's relevant right now. I don't believe that I can tell you that of the top 100 teachers in the country or the world by Golf Magazine or Golf Digest magazine that there are very few women on the list. But again, what I would say to you is that list, here's something that I would love to talk about, and the discrepancy is most of the people on the top 100 teachers list teach tour players. Right. They almost all of them, become famous because they teach someone who's in a slump, and then they start to play better, and then the teacher becomes famous. But there are millions or thousands of hundreds of thousands of teachers who teach, Mrs. Smith, who can't catch a ball, how to hit it clean, airborne, and straight on purpose, and enjoy playing golf with her family. So I don't agree with how they pick the top 100 teachers or the top 50 teachers, Golf Digest, whatever it is. But I will tell you that there's way less women on that list than there are men, because there are way less women who teach tour players. Now, I have taught some tour players. Mm-hmm. In fact, my husband and I were very instrumental in helping someone win the PGA Tour Comeback Player of the Year award, who was begging for Alan to meet him at the range in between two events. And he made $2 million that year, and he had to make $800,000 to keep his card, and he never even thanked Alan in public. Right. So I have helped someone win the Symetra Tour money list and win the last tournament of the season to secure that position, and was never even thanked publicly and never charged them. So it's kind of like this Brandel Chambly thing, whining about teachers and the best teachers. There was something on Twitter or something, I guess, that Brandel was talking about, of how people, teachers are ho-hum, and David Ledbetter came back at him and said, I remember helping you get try to figure out your game, and oh, by the way, the check's probably still in the mail. So I don't love helping tour players because you don't get paid or thanked. By most of them, they don't appreciate you. So why would I try to help somebody who's not going to appreciate what I'm telling them? I'm not saying they're all like that, but there's,
no.
What I have found is that's the case. So now we're going down a rabbit hole, because you're saying, well, how come there's not a lot of women in the top teaching list of Golf Magazine or Golf Digest? Well, there aren't, because they don't teach a lot of tour players, and maybe tour players don't trust women. Maybe they don't think the women know as much. I can tell you, my husband's smarter than me when it comes to the swing, but I am way smarter than him when it comes to the mind. So we are a perfect pair, because he's going to do, the technical skills of being able to hit a shot, and I'm going to help pull it out of you so you can do it on purpose when you need to.
Right, exactly. And that's a great point. We'll just talk about this for a second more. You are exactly right. And obviously I understand it. There's a certain element or perceived element of prestige, if you will, when you're teaching tournament players. And the problem is it gets you a name in the business, but you're not really, as you said, appreciated in the long run. And I don't think it's intentional on behalf of some of the tour players, just to come in their defense a little bit. I think that sometimes they get caught up in themselves and they just forget, it's kind of like forgetting where you came from. And you once were in a slump, or you once were having some really tough struggles, and somebody comes along and sort of pulls you out of that funk, if you will. I think it sort of behooves that person to come back and say, hey, you know what, Cindy Miller or Alan Miller or whoever really helped me with my game when I needed it. So it's like any profession. I think sometimes you go very unappreciated, and you kind of sometimes wonder, well, am I really doing good here? Because I don't feel like I'm getting the recognition. But I think what it is, and you're right. I know that the PGA of America, and this was not to slam any organization in that. I wanted to show some of the challenges. Not necessarily are they all going to be present, but some of the challenges that women have faced in the golf industry. And the other one is pay inequality. And I'm not even referring so much. You look at the tour as an example, and I understand their analogy and why they say that. But I have an argument against that. And what I'm talking about is, you look at the purses, for an example, between the PGA and the LPGA. And I know the first argument is, well, we're getting much bigger viewer, bigger sponsors and this, that, and the other. So obviously, we're going to be able to afford to pay more. But I look at it this way, from the ladies' tour perspective. If you are a manufacturer of equipment with some very creative marketing and very effective marketing, you can encourage people to go out and spend $400, $500, $600 on a driver that can't even play the game. If you're able to market a product such as that, then why can you not go out and say to sponsors, look, we've got one of the best packages out here? Am I not right? And again, I'm not trying to slam anybody. I'm trying to put things in perspective. Because when you look at there, in my opinion, there is no excuse. These ladies, whether it be on the Smet or whether it be on the regular LPGA or on the Legends Tour, these ladies have gone out and earned that right to do so. And I think when you're looking at a purse of $125,000 for the winner, compared to 1.2 or 2.2 million dollars on the men's tour, these ladies are playing with the same golf ball, the same golf clubs. There is no excuse that the gap should certainly. It doesn't necessarily have to. Yes, I'm sorry.
Time out. So I agree. I agree.
Right.
Okay. But who's signing the check? So what you have to do, I mean, we can sit here and bitch and moan and whine and complain about it, but we have to say who's signing the check and why would they pay us to come there? What do we give them? So needless to say, let's pretend there's a fat, bald, pale chauvinist pig at the head of a company, okay?
Right.
And he gets to bring Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy and Dustin Johnson and a bunch of them, right? Patrick Reed into town and write a check for $10 million or $20 million or however much it is, or he gets to write a check to bring in, Michelle Wee, who's not playing right now, but you know what I'm saying, all the women, right?
Mm-hmm.
Brittany Lincecum and the sisters, Cordish sisters, and stuff like that. You have to say which one gives them more bang for their buck. How many women play golf? So here's the issue. How many women play golf that can write the check?
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to sell the women's event, you need to talk to the man who's writing the check, who has a wife and a couple of daughters who want to play golf.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to twist the whole sales package around to give them a benefit. And so, again, this is not going to sound good, but the Legends Tour, and I've run for the Legends Tour board 3 or 4 times, and I've never been voted in. And part of the reason is because I'm not a superstar. Who's Cindy Miller? Oh, she lost her card after 3 years. Oh, well, she can't play. But Cindy Miller can teach. So Cindy Miller can go make the sponsor's wife and all of her friends and all of their daughters learn how to play golf and enjoy the game for a lifetime. Oh, maybe that's why we should bring her in. Absolutely. Use me. Use me for my skills and talent. But see, they don't see it that way. They say, well, she never won a tournament. Who cares about that? Well, you're thinking about it the wrong way. So
it's a business decision.
My argument, it is a business decision, and it's okay.
Right.
And don't get emotional about it. Don't get, feel bad about yourself and have a pity party. Suck it up and make yourself have more value. That's what I would say. So should the purses be equal? I don't know. Should they be closer to equal? Yes. And you know what? We've got the best advocate in our life ever with Mike Wan in charge of the, the commissioner of the LPGA Tour or the whole LPGA.
Right.
I mean, there's no one that's fighting for us more than him. But so you have to stop and say, who's signing the check and what do they want from us and how can we give it? Because if we make them happy, then they make their customers happy, and then everybody's happy, and we all get what we want.
Right.
So, sorry,
well, and it goes,
I went off on a tangent on you.
No, that's all right. So did I. So, well, the point about this discussion I want to talk about is, and you touched on it right there, and I understand why the business decisions are being made, but to go back to your point with the Legends Tour, and again, we're not trying to fault anybody or bring an unfavorable light. But I think you're right. I think sometimes you have to put things in a different perspective. And just because you haven't won this or you don't have the from a player standpoint, you weren't the number one player in the world, what have you, you bring, as you said, other skills and talents to it. And those are areas that are equally as important. And I think sometimes, and this is going to go to the next little story here, really to sort of prove this point, is that sometimes you have to look outside of the box and not always come in with tunnel vision. And here's an example. There's a young woman who, by the name of Megan Lamott, and she was the founder and is the founder and CEO of a New York-based women's golf clothing line, Foray. And what was interesting about this is she was trying to come over sort of the misunderstanding in the business that, she was dealing with a lot of buyers in the market in the clothing market who are men, which is fine. She's not arguing that. But she says we have to educate them as to why their customers are underserved. So as an example, she gives an example. She says buyers would say to her, well, we don't have a women's business, so we don't need to buy your stuff. And then she would, convince them to try it. And then suddenly she'd get all these emails saying, well, wow, we've sold out. So sometimes these people in those positions don't understand their market. And again, it kind of goes to the point you were just talking about with the Legends Tour, is I think sometimes we create a tunnel vision, if you will, and they don't look at the whole picture and say, yeah, okay, we need to have some good players up here representing the brand, but we also have to have people in different areas of golf because we're trying to appeal to everybody, not just because not everybody's going to be able to play on the tour, right? Everybody's going to be able to play golf if they choose, but they're not necessarily going to make it on tour. So it's good to have that representation there, but you also have to have representation that people can relate to. And if you can't relate to something, then you're not going to be of interest. And that's
well, it all
what
boils,
I'm
it all
like,
boils down to what problem do you solve and who do you solve it for? What problem do you solve and who do you solve it for? Because if you don't have something that you serve people with and offer them a solution, you've got no customers. So
right, exactly.
I think a lot of tour players, because their only inventory is themselves, if you will,
mm-hmm.
I believe that Mike Wan has taught the LPGA Tour players how to think outside the box and make them aware that it's not all about them. It's about the person that's signing the check to bring them in. And that is what this is all about. So, again, if you don't solve a problem, if you're entertaining, inspiring, uplifting, that's why the LPGA Foundation is doing so well. Why? Because we teach, women and children how to play the game and enjoy it with their families and, play a sport for their life. So it's what do we do for them that makes them want to hang out with us? So that's what this is all about. But I do agree with you. I mean, I've got a perfect example. I have a shirt business, and way back when, I don't even know what year, probably 94, 95, 96, I said to my husband, hey, the head pro at Augusta, you played in the Masters 5 times. Why don't we send him a couple of my shirts? That was one of these days that I had all this courage. And so we did. We packed them up and we mailed them to him. And I said, oh, don't call him and ask him how he likes them because he's probably going to go, oh, your wifey poo made these shirts. I bet they're adorable, right? Well, we waited a couple months and called back, and he said to Alan, oh, my God, they're really nice. Why don't you send me a dozen? So I was, overjoyed, and I sent him a dozen shirts with the logo on them, and he called back, and he goes, those shirts sold in 3 days. Send me another dozen. Yep. And that, so again, he's not sure, he doesn't trust, and then I end up selling 144 dozen shirts for the Masters. Well, thank you very much. But again, You've got to test things out. You've got to see whether or not it works. And you have to finagle your way in the door. And that doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And it's really I think what I really wanted to do with this discussion was just to point out some of the challenges that women have faced. And one final one I want to mention, and again, I know, things are changing and have changed quite a bit, but this really talks about this young woman, Marina Alex, who is an LPGA Tour winner. She grew up playing junior golf the way a lot of women, grew up playing. But one of the hurdles that she faced was there wasn't a lot of girls' teams. So that meant she had to compete against the boys, which in some ways is good because it helps them to raise their game a little bit more and forces them to. But, I think that when you're dealing with personalities, and not all young girls are going to be comfortable playing with or even against the boys, certainly not initially until they get over the initial sort of fear and comfort level of playing. So I think that what the industry has to do is really take a hard look and say, okay, how can we make it, we want to bring more people into the game, and particularly we want to bring more young girls and women into the game as well. So what we represent has to be, and again, it doesn't have to be, if there's 100,000 over here, it has to be 100,000 over here. I don't mean it from that perspective, but the image that is projected has to show an image of equality. Whereas, hey, if you're a young woman or a young boy and you want to come in and play, there's something here for you. And unfortunately, there's still a little bit of that. Well, if I'm a young girl and want to play, depending on where I live, even to this day, they don't have women's golf teams. So where do the women play? They have to, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, and I know Marina. I've played with her. She's been to Buffalo. She went to Vanderbilt with a girl that we taught that played on the Vanderbilt team, and we're friends. So, I have a girl that's at Towson University on the golf team right now who played high school golf last year on a men's golf team. It depends, again, it's not the school. It's our job to promote girls' golf enough that there are enough girls that you need to make a girls' team. So it starts with the LPGA professionals and the PGA professionals and the junior golf programs. I got news for you. If there's enough girls in your school district, and some of the moms or dads said, hey, I want to be the coach and we're going to start a team, they have to start a girls' team. So that's where it comes from. So it's our job to promote and create junior programs that makes, the game be fun for all these young girls who want to play the game.
Right, and you're right, and that's exactly what's happened. I know in a couple of communities not far from me where they've done just that, is somebody within the community themselves, and that's really what I'm saying. And you're exactly right in your point earlier. Mike Wan, who has done a phenomenal job as head of the LPGA organization, in going out there and has done, gotten over so many hurdles and helped to do so many things. But he cannot do it on his own. So it's really an industry way, if you will, of thinking. And again, even with all of the hard work that you ladies do in the LPGA organization as well, it's still sometimes it's great, but I think it could be better. I think there's more in other parts of the industry that need to get on board and help, because it's great to start up all these junior golf schools here and clinics over here, but you have to really get out into the community and say, and don't just, putting up a banner or a poster or whatnot, or, an e-newsletter blast and saying, hey, we're starting a junior program here. You've really got to get out and you've got to get people within the community involved more, I think, because I think there's a lot of young folks that would love to participate in that. And as I've said before, I think one of the issues that most people, the perception of golf is what we see on television with the tours, or and I think that there's a lot more to it. And this goes back to what I said in the beginning. The marketing and so forth in golf is predominantly, I think, one-sided. And also, you've got these equipment manufacturers. I mean, I would rather them spend their millions of dollars not just promoting the latest and greatest equipment. I'd like to see them promoting other aspects of the game as well, to make it a well-rounded and balanced. That's just my thought. But
yes,
for what it's worth, for what, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not knocking it. I mean, they've got to promote their products, but I just think there's a better way. And I think sometimes when you've got too many pieces in the puzzle and they're not linking together, that's what I'm trying to say. Is I think we need to do a better job as an industry to link it together. So hopefully we've opened probably opened a can of worms. I'll probably get a bunch of hate mail or something later, but oh well. All right, so I see that our special guest is ready, Marvol Barnard. So we'll introduce her and then we'll bring her out. Marvol is the national president of the LPGA Professionals and also a member of the PGA of America. As the LPGA's national president, she leads an organization of over 1,800 female golf professionals who serve in every aspect of the golf industry. Known for innovative programming, Marvol is the recipient of the 2018 PGA National Player Development Award, the 2016 LPGA Teacher of the Year Award, and the Nancy Lopez Golf Achievement Award, among many other notable achievements. Her focus and passion is on growing the game of golf for women, and she has brought golf to countless women throughout her career. She and her husband Sam live in Green Valley, Arizona, where she serves as the Director of Instruction at Haven Golf Course. And in her spare time, she's pursuing her master's degree in organizational leadership from Northern Arizona University. So, Cindy, let's welcome our very special guest this morning, Marvol Barnard.
Good morning, Prez.
Good morning. How are you guys this morning?
We're doing well. Have you been listening to us?
I have. Absolutely.
We're solving the
Great
problems of the world.
I love
Would you
it.
like to help us?
Of course. That's what I do.
Good.
I have opinions.
I know.
Well,
that's why I love you.
Well, we'd love to. We would love to hear some of them. Cindy, do you want to go first, or do you want me?
You go first.
Okay. Well, Marvol, thank you very much for joining us this morning. And we were just having a discussion, about some of the challenges that women have faced in the golf industry. Some obviously past and some present. But before we do that, so that everybody understands a little bit about what you do, just explain a little bit about your role and what you do as the national president of the LPGA.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, first of all. And Cindy and I work together on our LPGA's executive committee. So we have 6 sections across the country and internationally, I should say. And so Cindy leads the Northeast section, and I came out of the Central section and was the Central section president for 6 years, and then ran this last cycle for national president with my vice presidential candidate, Dr. Allison Kurt. She's out in California. Mm-hmm. And so in that role, we lead the executive committee, we brainstorm, we think outside of the box, we work closely with Nancy Henderson at LPGA headquarters and her staff, and we just try to do some of the things you're talking about. We want to grow the game for everyone. We want the game to be healthy, and our professionals, their teachers and their coaches, entrepreneurs like Cindy. We have people who are head professionals, directors of golf, so really a well-rounded membership, which, leans more toward the teaching side.
Right. Well said. Let me just ask a sort of a follow-up then, and then Cindy, I'll bounce it back over to you. What do you see, as president? Obviously, as you said, you guys are brainstorming and trying to find different ways and creative ways of getting more people into the game. But I want to focus on particularly, obviously, women into golf, which is, I know, your main focus. What do you see as some of the ways that you found to be most effective for getting women interested in playing the game, and then hopefully at some point, whether through conversations or through, just seeing how everything works, maybe getting some of them that have, a knack for it, if you will, into the teaching side. I mean, everybody, of course, would love to play, out in the tour and battle it out with the best, but not everybody's going to be able to do that. So first off, what are some creative ways that you guys have come up with to get them into the game? And then what do you try to do to encourage those that are interested in to teach?
Well, my clientele tends to be an older demographic. I'm here in a retirement area, so most of my group are in the 55 and up range, I would say. What I really focus on is getting them comfortable at the golf course. And I've hosted several events. We call them in the industry, they're the Invite Her events, and you get people out to the course, and I think women like comfortable. When I go into a department store, I like to be greeted. I like the surroundings to be nice. I'm going to buy a lot if I feel good in the department store. So it's the same thing in golf. If you get a female to the golf course and she feels comfortable and welcome, and then becomes interested in the programming that you're developing. And you have to make it fun. It can't just be golf clinic at 2:00. You say chips and sips, and you get a glass of wine after the class. And believe me, in my demographic, if you add wine, you've got them right there.
Right.
So I think it really does start with comfort, and then creative programming and engaging them and having something for them to do next. Cindy, would you agree with that?
I agree. And did we tell you that Marvol won the Player Development Award for the PGA? last year, so she
no.
knows how to get people into the game. Yeah, she's a rock star in more ways than one. So again, you've got two servant people here, Ted, who absolutely want to help people enjoy and master the game of golf and learn to play it for a lifetime. So, Marvol, why do you do what you do?
Oh, man, I love it. You know, I came into golf late. I didn't start golfing till I was almost 40, and I really can relate to people who drive up to a facility and think, oh, my gosh, everybody in there knows everything, and I know nothing. And so I relate to that crowd, and I want to help them overcome their fears. And, you know, in the LPGA, we have so many of our members. It's like you were talking that, you know, not everyone teaches tour players, and hardly anyone teaches tour players. The rest of us are out here growing the game and keeping the game healthy on a grassroots level. And so part of our role in the LPGA Professionals is to support those women who are doing just that. How can we make sure they are well educated, have the latest technology, education, and everything that they can have in order to support that cause? You know, the girls golf program that you were just talking about, they've got over 90,000 girls now that have gone through, and some of the statistics on that are that girls now make up 36% of all junior golfers, which is up from 17% really recently.
Wow.
So our professionals are supporting that, and we support them in that cause.
That's fantastic.
Awesome.
Wow.
Ted,
go ahead, Cindy. Oh, okay.
You go ahead.
All right. So what can, and this was a question that I sort of threw out there, not really a question, but I guess a statement when Cindy and I were talking earlier. What can the industry as a whole do? I mean, we know what Michael Wan's doing. We know what people like yourselves, Marvol and Cindy, are doing, and many of the other professionals in the women. But what about the rest of the industry? What can we do to really, you know, appeal to young women and say, this is a game for you? One of my criticisms is, you know, in a public sense, what we see more often in the media is at the tour level. And that's great, and we love to watch these men and women play. But the truth of the matter is, as if you were an outsider and you were looking at that, it looks to be unattainable for most people. So they think, well, this is just, you know, that's a really tough game, and it's just not something for me. How can we, as an entire industry, sort of come together a little more effectively? What would be some suggestions that you can think of to really get out there and get more people, not just women, but more people in general, back into the game or into the game?
That is such a good question. You touched on it earlier in the first half hour about how the industry needs to work together. We tend to have our little silos. You know, one group's good at this and one group talks about that. But, you know, to really sit down and work together to come up with solutions, get everybody at the table. I get frustrated sometimes when you'll hear there will be a conversation about the industry and the female side of it is not even mentioned. You know, there was just a really kind of a neat commercial that just came out from ESPN, how they miss sports, and, you know, they have clips of different sports, and toward the end there's LPGA players jumping into Poppy's pond, but that was the only female representation in this commercial, you know, so it's like women are still sort of an afterthought in that realm. But back to your question, I think to be sure to have every player at the table and talk about it and promote the fun side and the health side. My God, our country is really focused on health these days, and golf is a very healthy sport. You know, if you have a course you can walk, you're going to get over 10,000 steps. And I think we're missing the boat on not really linking with that in golf, the health aspect of it, especially with the younger crowd, the millennial crowd.
Mm-hmm. What about, let me just follow up real quick, and then Cindy, I'll give it back to you. Let me just follow up with something you said earlier. You know, you talk about where you're logistically located, and obviously many of the people playing, particularly women, are of that 55 and older group. So obviously many of them are maybe at this point falling into the sort of the grandparent stage of their lives. Do you encourage programs, because obviously sometimes the parents, because they're still actively working and some of the others maybe are closer to retirement, do you try to offer programs where the grandparents, particularly grandmothers, might bring their young granddaughters with them and have clinics that would have them introducing that younger generation? Because obviously grandkids want to, hang out with their grandparents at an early age. So is that something that you think would be advantageous, or are they already doing that?
I think that's a really good idea. The unfortunate thing here in that regard is that most of the people in our community are the snowbirds, quote unquote. So they're from somewhere else, so their grandkids aren't here. However, just speaking of grandparents, we just had a really neat thing that got me thinking just yesterday. And that is during this downtime, this enforced downtime that we're all going through right now, the LPGA, we're doing some really creative things online. And so we have just started last week a little program. It's not a little program, but where we have our really good rock star junior teachers come on and do a short segment on how you can get your kids up and moving and playing golf in their living room or maybe in the backyard. And we rolled the first one out last week. It was very creative and cute. And then the next one is today, in fact. So I was promoting it on social media, and I had about 5 of my students here in Retirementville send it out to their families. And I thought, oh boy, here we go. There's the link for the older clientele here who are sharing it with their families back in Wisconsin. Now here we go. We can take off with this thing, and so that's kind of a virtual version of what you were just talking about. But that's how we can reach everyone, I think, is through the demographic, the older demographic that has the money, has the time, and now they can promote it down to their families.
Right. Well, the reason why I pointed that out was because, and I'm sure, I know both of you are familiar with this area, but in Central Florida we have the villages, and the reason why I'm bringing them up is they have on their promotional video, they talk about, of course not golf, but they talk about a lot of different activities for grandkids, and they encourage that relationship in the villages and bringing, because again, you're dealing with groups, some live there, but some kind of migrate down there from up north. And I thought, if we had more of that around the nation, where communities like your 55 and up communities, having programs focused on golf, where, as when the grandkids, come or encourage them to come at certain times of the year, you could offer programs like that. Say, bring the kids out in the golf course, and as a way of introducing a younger generation. And that way, at the same time, they're there with family. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I know you can't just go to the community and say, okay, we're going to have one day a year, but, it would have to be a continual flow of it. But I just think that might be something, too, to have that open the doors for them. Cindy, go ahead.
What is the one thing that, again, here's what I just heard you say. The fact that you didn't start playing golf until you were in your 40s gives you a soft spot in your heart for you to be at the perfect location and facility, because you see those people get out of the car and the fear in their eyes, and you go up and grab their hand and look them in the eyes and say, I'm going to help you, and you're going to be comfortable.
Yep. That's my why.
That is your why.
Yep. And I want them to love it like I do, and to see the benefits of it like I do. And the thing that I love the most of anything I do is when that person comes alone and walks out with a friend, and then has 10 friends, and then comes back and plays in a league of 40 people. That's how golf grows right there.
So let's go a little deeper into your why, because you and Liz Cooper, who is now working for the LPGA, and she's another rock star. We've got a lot of rock stars that no one's ever heard of until now. So So let's go a little deeper into your why. Your why, define the why. Does it come from way down deep within? Is it emotional?
Yeah, I guess so. It's a connection. For me, I played everything growing up. I played every sport, and I was a good athlete, and I went to college and played college basketball, and when I moved to Alaska and got away from sport, and when I came to golf, it was a sort of fluky thing. My husband and I were snowbirds and came to this little community that we're in now, and everybody down here was golf crazy, and so we tried it, and it was a sudden connection back to what I loved so much, and that was athletics and achievement and competing with yourself, and it just had so much. Just as I'm saying that, my heart's pounding because I just loved that side of it so much. And so I was so blessed to be connected with a female professional who really took me under her wing and made me comfortable in the game and taught me the game. And so when I had the opportunity to become a teacher myself, that's what I see that in people, that even women who never had the opportunity to play sports, they will tell me, and I'm sure, Cindy, you hear this all the time, oh, no, I'm not an athlete. I'm not athletic. And I say to them, we don't know that yet. You just haven't had an opportunity to check that out, So I think that's what I relate so much to with them, is helping them uncover something deep within themselves, like happened with me.
It's so true. I think this time that we're being asked to quarantine and stay home and social distancing, again, I think it's been a huge blessing to me, because I would have never, ever, I have never not taught lessons in March or April in Buffalo in 40 years. And so all the things that I, in the back of my head, you should go do this and you should go do that. And again, not most of us, but a huge percentage of the LPGA members are independent contractors. Basically, we're entrepreneurs and we run our own businesses. So again, you get these big, hairy dreams and goals that you want to accomplish and you have no time. And it's like, well, God, I'm getting old. When am I going to do that? And it's like, hello, it's time. Ted's like, I'm bored. I'm like, well, get your butt over here and help me, because I'm not. So anyway, again, you fire me up, girl.
Well, that's so funny you should say that, because just yesterday, literally, because I've got all this time now to think, I was thinking my only enemy is time. I've got to hurry and get this stuff done because, tick, tick, tick. But this downtime is kind of interesting because it makes you think differently, and that's what I'm really enjoying right now, working with my board here, the LPGA board and the executive committee, and then our members, is the creativity that's coming out of this, and it makes you think about your own situation. Yesterday, I saw the greatest video. I think it was a PGA professional. Everybody all of a sudden is doing home videos now, but she was using wine corks as a golf ball. And I'm going, okay, there's my little clients down here who can play golf in their living room because I know they have wine corks available. So there's no excuse.
I would just wonder if they were dry or if they were still a little wet on one end.
That I may give a lesson on that, how to deal with wet conditions with the wine cork.
Right, exactly.
Oh, that is awesome.
That's fantastic. But that raises a really interesting and a great point that both of you make. During this downtime, if you will, it does, Cindy, as you mentioned, it gives you an opportunity. Because this is the problem in today's society, is we've gotten so busy doing so many different things. And Cindy, as you and I always joke about, you spin so many plates and how you never seem to manage to drop them. But you know, you have to sometimes take a step back, and I think this is really what this is doing, is allowing us all to sort of take a step back and not just reflect, but to reorganize ourselves and really look at what the important things are. And you know, the fact that we're having to, I mean, really think about it. Thank God for technology, because without technology, you wouldn't really be able to communicate. I mean, think about this. With, you know, as much as we grumble and complain sometimes about technology that it's stealing our lives, and we're not, you know, doing what we used to do. Think of everybody cooped up in their house, and if you couldn't communicate, or you were on the old, now mind you, if we still had the old party lines that they used to have, and I think we all remember those, that would be interesting. But we don't have those anymore. So I mean, it's allowing people to be very creative.
I forgot about that.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
If I could tell you some stories, but anyways, but you know, the point is that it's allowing us an opportunity as an industry to be even more creative than we already are, and looking at ways of getting that message out. You know, since we can't get out to the golf courses easily in some cases, and you know, be teaching one-on-one, it's giving us an opportunity to go on YouTube or go on these other and getting that message out there. So, you know, Cindy, in your case, you're able to reflect and work on some of those projects that you maybe have been putting off, as you said, for a long time. And Marvol, I'm sure the same thing for you. It's allowing you to kind of regroup, if you will, and say, okay, here are some things that we really wanted to do with the LPGA organization and haven't been able to just because we're so swamped all the time. Now we can take a second look and a third look if need be, and start to find ways of implementing, so that when we do get back out in full swing of things, then we're going to be in even better shape. What do you think about that, Marvol?
Oh, I totally agree. And it's not only I've got so much to say about this. It's not only that, it's reinventing how we do things. And, you know, one of the problems in golf these days, it's not really golf's problem, it's a problem with our society, is that we're so fast-paced now, you know, and we want things right now. And the thought of playing golf and being away from home for 5 hours or whatever is, you know, sort of a detriment, I think, and a deterrent to the younger generation. So I think we have an opportunity right now during this downtime to think outside of the box and reinvent the way we do things. And if the video thing is working, then how can we connect that with the green grass when we all go back to work? You know, how can we change this up to fit this crowd that we are perhaps enticing right now? They're home watching this and thinking, wow, you know, this looks like fun. But we've got to keep that connection going when we go back to work. I saw a great video yesterday my rock star friend Liz Cooper sent to me. It was a Simon Sinek conversation he was having with his staff right now, and they were talking about this time and it's unprecedented. And he said, you know, it really isn't. That businesses have gone out of business because of other things happening. For the example he used, one of the examples was Starbucks. Starbucks moves into an area and all the little mom and pop coffee shops with their torn couches and things go out of business because a new game has arrived in town. And so he said it behooves all of us to be thinking really creatively and doing things differently, and that we're going to have to survive.
Yep, I think that's 100% accurate. You're exactly right. I think we have to be creative, and I think many people are ramping it up, if you will. Cindy, any final questions or thoughts, and then we have to wrap up.
No, but I thank you, Marvol, for being the leader and the friend that you are. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your heart and your why.
It's been my pleasure. I really appreciate it. Very fun. Thank you.
Well, Marvol, yes, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll have you back again maybe a little bit later in the season if you're available. But we appreciate it, and keep doing all the great work that you're doing, and thank you for joining us this morning on the Women of Golf.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Bye, honey.
You have a great one. Bye-bye. You know, just a sort of a final thought, and then we'll wrap up. But you know, she's exactly right. You know, I think that we have to just find creative ways to really approach our not just our business side of things, but our everyday lives. And this has really been a good lesson, I think, for everybody. It's a tough lesson for some, but I think it is a lesson for society. I think we've become too fast-paced and to the point where, you know, people don't even enjoy themselves as much because we're so caught up in the everyday grind of life. So Cindy, you know, this, as you said, has been an opportunity for you to really focus on some of the things that you've wanted to focus on for a while.
Yes, it truly is. It's like, just stop. Be grateful. Be grateful for your family. Be grateful for your health. Mm-hmm. Be grateful for, you know, it's just stop. No whining allowed.
Yep, that's right. Exactly.
And I'm grateful for you.
Well, I reciprocate with that. I agree. You know, and this is one of the things, you know, I really enjoy about doing the show is we get a chance to really talk with some great, you know, leaders in our industry and particularly, you know, some of the women that are making some great strides and you know, really, that's really what I was trying to say earlier on, is that I think there is so much more that we can do and we're going to continue to do. But I think we have to work together as an industry all the way around. All parts of the engine have to be functioning in order for it to run smoothly. So, you know, not just a handful, if you will, of people out there, you know, pushing forward. So on that note, we want to thank everybody for joining us. And once again, thank you to our very special guest this morning, Marvol Barnard, for joining us. And thank you guys for tuning in each and every week. And we'll see you next week on behalf of the Women of Golf show. Cindy Miller and I want to thank you. So have a good one, guys. Thanks, Cindy.
Thanks, Ted. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening this morning to the Women of Golf Show. Tune in live each week by visiting blogtalkradio.com/Women of Golf or on any of these social media platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, CastBox, TalkStream Live, and of course Spotify. If you can't join us live, check out our on-demand section for previously aired broadcasts. To get updates for future shows and upcoming guests, you can follow us on Facebook at Women of Golf. You can also follow me on Twitter at Ted and Buck CEO and Cindy at Cindy Miller Golf. Please remember to join us next week on the Women of Golf Show. See you next time. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.